We don't have much time, so we will delve immediately with these topics. First, to be able to have a context, I am going to talk about the product, cherries, followed with the parameters that we assess when reception and or arrival and relation with storage and quality. Then very short, some post-harvest problems and effects, and finally, the challenges we view in the future.
Now, going into our matter, let's see how this cherry product is. As you can see it, the visual aspect is a very important aspect. It's a significant characteristic, and we can see here that the fruit, the product that we offer, has two structures. The peduncle, ideally peduncle should be green and terpene, that give a degree of freshness, and the fruit itself. Our main client asks in the market, the Chinese market, is to have big fruit, ideally mahogany in color, smooth, brilliant skin, and free from defect. So it should be a very attractive fruit. And why it is important? Because we should not forget that this fruit, this very attractive fruit, they are given as presents. And other important attributes are the internal aspects of the fruit. And this should be such as to express itself in a tasty fruit. And this is a very important point. Not only are we talking about the visual, but also about the organoleptic aspect of the fruit. And we say tasty, it had to be sweet through soluble solids, crunchy, it should be firm and juicy. Now, how are we going to obtain such a product? Okay, in order to have this type of product with a potential for quality, the product should be built, and we construct the product by step from the fruit set, from the flora induction. This is a pre-harvest, and it's a very lengthy process that takes over different months, and our growers and technicians understand very well which are the different factors and how to handle in order to reach this quality product. In the post-harvest, we take the product at the floor post-harvest, and we try and delay the decay processes and the senescences. For us, it is very clear that once we take the product from the plant, the product continues to breathe. And so why we want to decrease the respiratory level in order to extend its shelf life. But this is perishable product. We should never forget that. And the shelf life is limited. So in order to achieve the objective of delay senescences at the post-harvest, we use different tools and techniques, and the most important is temperature management. Understand that the general aspect. Let's see now the parameters that we use and that we evaluate at the reception that have a late incidence in post-harvest. I want to show you first these curves that refer to size parameters, and I want to show you an exporter company that has that have the same growers for 3 seasons. And I want to show you the influence of larger volume, because they previously worked with 13, 14 fruit under jumbo. In a recent season, with the growth in their production, the size curve move, increasing the fruit under jumbo in 26%. So a larger production volume did have an incidence in an impact in the quality of the fruit. What other parameters are we going to use at the reception that allow us to segregate by color, firmness, and soluble solids? And it is important to consider how we collect the information. What is the size and form of sampling and way of sampling? And then we go to the analysis of color. Color is the parameter indicating maturity. In this picture, the red, their fruit is less mature, and we are moving to darker colors. There is an increase in maturity, and so there is an evolution of the fruit towards senescence. And this is important, and it has been mentioned in the previous presentation that sometimes we have troubles in the pulp because it's an old fruit or decayed fruit that has had problems in the temperature, or it has been stored for too much time or a longer time. With maturity, there is less firmness and sensitivity to mechanical damage, with an increase of the risk of rot. How we measure color? Most of the exporters know we use color tables. In the color tables, the most used colors are 3 and 3.5, which are mahogany color. When we sample the fruit in order to segregate and to sort and characterize a batch, it would be ideally to take at least 100 fruit to sample this point. And lately we are starting to use other technologies such as imaging in order to measure this index. Let me remind that at the reception all this measure require time, so it is extremely important to considering the automation of this process. Firmness, it is an important indicator. Normally what we use more is to use Durofel. Durofel is an instrument where you measure firmness fruit to fruit. And we have also evolved over this year towards more automation in order to collect information from a larger number of fruits that finally generate data and much more interesting data and statistics. And we can mention FIMPRO and Cherry Tracker as devices. Also important is the sample size, because there's a lot of dispersion or spreading. There is a different people takes, some people sampled 500, 200, 2 kilos. It's important to homogenize this sampling size. And another important point that we have realized is the batch spreading. More than working with average firmness, we need to work with the spreading of this information, particularly when we have seasons such as the previous season, where there was a lot of lack of uniformity. Why I say that? There looks this graph, and we can see that the average of this lot was 75.7 units of Durafel. If we, under the 70 threshold, there's 34% of softer fruit. If we would analyze only the average, we have missed this idea that this percentage of fruit was below what we needed. Here we have another example with lapins at the reception in 2018-19 and 2019-20 and the final season. And if the threshold is 70, you can see that the average is all this is plotted in color, and the bars are the dispersion or the spreading. You realize that there's a lot of fruit that is under the level of the soft fruit threshold. It is important to manage, to have in mind this concept. As you see, 18-19, there was 6% on below 70 Durafel units, and in the 2021 season, there was 20% under this threshold. Firmness is an organoleptic, so we should never forget that when our fruit reaches the Chinese market, what the receiver sees if there is condensation, and then they touch the bag. So this indicator is extremely important, and also it relates, this firmness indicator relates to sensitivity to mechanical damage. Soluble solids are an indicator of organoleptic indicators related to sweetness. We measure with manual refractometers and also digital that allows us to measure acidity and related with dry matter. So with sensitivity to mechanical damage. In recent years, we have also seen that it may be related to some cosmetic defect. Soluble solids also, as in the previous case, there's a lot of ways to take the sample. People take 3, 5, 10 fruits. Other people take the same 5 to 10 fruit, they squeeze the juice and prepare a composite sample. We suggest that you take soluble solids by color. Each color would have its own solid solubles by color, and also take soluble solids of each fruit in particular. The same happened with the problem with the issue of firmness. Soluble solids also present spreading or dispersion. So it is important to notice or work with values instead of working with averages. In this average, you can see in the area, the color area, you see where is 50% of data. And you can see that in Santina, in the 1920 season values were okay, the same for lapins, but in 2021 this 50% of the data was larger, and the spread and the scattering was even larger. And if we set a threshold of 16-degree Brix value, there was a lot of fruit that will be outside the threshold, not meeting the requirements for soluble solids. We're going to let's see what are the main problems in the post-hardware. This is a general, this is not a representation of what happened in the recent season, but just to identify that pitting and bruises, rods that have the largest percentage. Then we can put together soft and cracked fruit and followed by fruit without peduncle or dehydrated peduncle, and some percentage of the fruit that has a cosmetic defect in the skin or in the pulp. According to the observations from our receivers, the large problem of the season were in bruises and pitting, followed by soft fruit. And in the middle of the season, problem with dehydration of peduncle, of fruit without peduncle. And finally, when everything occurred, what happened, everything in the Chinese market, some fruit was stored for more than 45, 50 days. They showed problems in the pulp. In order to finish, what will be, in our opinion, the main challenges? Here, in the short term, in 2 months or 3 months, we will be dealing with the new seasons, and we will continue to live with COVID-19. And we will have problem of shortage of labor, and we need to be over our we need to do a lot of planning, be much more efficient, and we need to optimize all of our processes and logistics. Another important point that we think that is very important, that maybe we will be able to put together good work teams that will be able to control critical points at every stage of the process, and they can take action at the critical points. In the medium and in the long term, automation and the incorporation of new technologies in post and pre-harvest. And from the point of view of the markets, yes, try to conquer and reconquer some new markets with challenges and with proposals that should be different to what we have normally proposed or faced. And in the previous presentation, I do believe that we need to be reminded that our fruit, we cannot transport the fruit. We cannot work on virtually. There will be defect. Fruit will not be perfect, so we need to deal with that and present our customer that there will always be problems, but it's important that the fruit meet physical internal attributes and features that ensure the purchase experience of the consumer. To all of you, I wish you a lot of success in this coming season. Our team Trio Kimon wishes you the best of luck, and thank you very much.
Gracias, Militza.